the Hotel Rigopiano, perched on the edge of the Italian Apennine about 100 miles northeast of Rome, has always been somewhat off the beaten path. This very seclusion was what drew many guests, including celebrities, to its doors. In January 2017, the snowfall was exceptionally heavy, even for that time of year, continuing relentlessly for days. The snowdrifts around the hotel grew by the hour, a concern that also troubled Gianpaolo Matrone as he was preparing to travel to the hotel from Rome. He and his wife Valentina were looking forward to a peaceful weekend getaway. However, the snow was a worry. So, he called the hotel owner, who reassured him that simply putting chains on the tires would suffice for a trouble-free journey. 6 hours later, they realized it wasn't going to be an easy feat. The blizzard forced them to slow down, and by the time they finally arrived, they nearly tumbled out of the car. Exhausted, they entered their room to freshen up before descending for dinner. The waiter serving them appeared anxious, which they initially dismissed until he quietly admitted to being more frightened than they were, having been practically trapped in the hotel for 6 days. Gianpaolo and Valentina didn't take his concerns seriously, thinking he was exaggerating. After dinner, all they could manage was to collapse into bed. Waking up on the morning of January 18th, they found the situation had worsened. The cars in the parking lot were no longer visible, and the light switches were unresponsive. The hotel had lost power and telephone service, and mobile phones only worked sporadically. After breakfast, Gianpaolo and Valentina went to the pool, where suddenly the hotel began to shake. Windows rattled, and the water churned. They exchanged looks. It was an earthquake. That was the last straw for the couple. They quickly dressed and rushed to the parking lot, not bothering to gather their belongings from the room. About 10 minutes later, the mountain rumbled again. By that time, they were already in their car driving away from the hotel. A few minutes later, they realized they couldn't go any further. A large snowdrift blocked the road. Matrone managed to clamber over the obstacle, only to find that the snow stretched as far as the eye could see. They had no choice but to return to the hotel. As dusk fell outside, the 40 guests and staff inside were pondering their next steps. Some dispersed to their rooms, others sat in the library. Adriana Vranciano sent her husband Gianpiero to the car to fetch some headache pills, while she stayed in the billiard room with their 2 daughters. The Matrones were near the reception. The hotel owner was in the room behind, and about 10 workers were in the kitchen. Then it started. They heard the avalanche before they saw it. As a real wall of snow and ice rolled towards the hotel, it produced an unbearable roar. It was later estimated that the amount of snow was enough to fill over 4,000 of the largest trucks, along with the trees and stones it dragged along, all at a speed of over 100 miles per hour. The walls cracked at the first impact. The avalanche struck directly at the kitchen, instantly killing all the workers present. The snow ripped the hotel from its foundations, turning it into a heap of debris. Parts were flung up to 100 meters away, and when the avalanche finally came to a halt, the survivors were buried underneath. Everything calmed down and darkened. Fabio Salsetta, the hotel's janitor, was in a workshop about 100 meters away from the main building at the time. He heard the roar, which soon turned into a muffled silence. He tried to open the door, but couldn't. The snow had buried it. Somehow he crawled out through a window and found himself facing a field of snow where the hotel once stood. Only a few minutes later, he spotted the tip of a roof peeking out of the snow, about 100 meters away from where the building had been just 10 minutes earlier. He also saw a man staggering through the snow. It was Gianpiero, who had gone to fetch the tablets from the car. The avalanche had missed him, and now he was digging through the snowdrifts with his hands. His family remained in the hotel. Miraculously, his car had been spared. 2 men entered the cabin trying to catch a phone signal. An hour later, they managed to reach the rescuers. Antonio Crosetta, their leader, alerted the military. Then he gathered a unit of 14. They had to climb about 10 kilometers up the mountain. 8 hours later, they were at the location of the hotel. There was no sign of movement anywhere. It took them a few minutes to notice the people in the car. They informed the rescuers that there were about 40 people in the hotel and provided crucial information on where the victims might be located. The rescuers immediately began drilling through the snowdrifts. It took them a whole hour to find the first one, a hotel employee who was alive. A little further, they found another colleague. Then they discovered the lifeless body of the hotel owner. While the rescuers searched for bodies, Matrone lay beneath the snow, fortunately in an air pocket. He was unaware he was 10 meters below the surface and couldn't hear what was happening above him. In total darkness, the weight of the snow pressed and crushed him. He couldn't remember what had happened or how he ended up there. He was lying on his stomach, his left leg completely twisted, with his foot touching his cheek. He could move his left arm, but his right arm and leg were pinned down by something massive, immovable. To his horror, he realized his chin was resting on the knee of a body, a corpse, actually. He tried to recall. Then it dawned on him. He was standing at the doorway between two rooms of the hotel, talking to his wife, when everything collapsed. That threshold saved him. He tried to call out to his wife. No response. Then he heard a voice. She was calling him, asking if he was alive. Occasionally, he would lose consciousness, hallucinating rescuers who pulled him out of the snow on a magic carpet, or a friend, a bodybuilder, lifting tons of concrete and snow to free him. It was already Thursday when more rescuers arrived. The most experienced ones looked at the remains of the hotel and shook their heads. No survivors. Technicians set up antennas to pick up mobile phone signals. Where there were phones, there were people. They turned their attention to the mound created by the avalanche, assuming it was the hotel's roof. They dug it out, then cut through the remains. Slowly, they descended into the pile of debris that was once a building. For hours, they called out for survivors. No one responded. The next day, more than 30 hours after the search began, they heard something. A woman was calling for help. It was Adriana. One daughter was with her, the other a little further away. They quickly pulled them out. This gave them hope that there were more survivors. They cut a path to the next pile of debris, the remains of a former room. On the cameras, they spotted two children hiding behind a couch that had miraculously remained intact. Later, they caught a phone signal. They dug in that direction and soon pulled out a couple and another woman. They informed the rescuers that there was another man below, Matrone. Well past midnight, 55 hours since the avalanche, they dug relentlessly, anxious that everything could easily collapse again. They broke blade after blade on their chainsaws, moving towards the source of the signal. Suddenly, they heard a voice. They turned off their machines. It was Matrone, calling out. He was delirious, talking with his wife. She was telling him everything would be all right, help was on the way. And so it was. At 6 a.m, the rescuers broke through the last layer above Matrone. In that air pocket, there were also two bodies. Using cranes, they moved pieces of concrete and pulled them out. He was the last, the 11th survivor. 5 days later, they told him that Valentina hadn't survived. They found her body not far from where Matrone was trapped. It was estimated she died instantly when the hotel collapsed. He believed that the voices that had kept him company, offering hope in the darkest moments, was his wife in the form of a guardian angel watching over him. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your time and hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked what you saw, be sure to check out the other great content on our channel. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more. Thank you again, and see you in the next video.